Well, welcome everybody to this month's Beyond Coaching experience. I bring you, you did not recognize me. Uh, um, I bring you greetings from 23 floors up in Copenhagen. Um, my last night here after a wonderful time here working with all four Scandinavian EMCC chapters. That was quite fun, as well as having some marvelous holiday. So, for those of you who are just sort of joining us for the first time, we have there'll be a slide coming up, but just to orient you a bit, we've have a theme all year long of trust, and we've now in the third sort of session in our first cycle, and then we'll start a new cycle in April. But each month we've been organizing ourselves around breathing practice as a way for us to kind of find ourselves a bit and do some inner exploration around trust. So as always, the wonderful Karen is our host, so you're welcome if you have questions or comments as we go to put things in the chat box, and Karen will bring those forward, and we'll have an extended breakout group in a little while to give you a chance to really talk with your peers about today's particular topic. And anything else you need from us as you go along, just let us know and we'll take care of it. So I'm going to share the screen again and get us started. And so the sort of sub-theme for today is around flow. And one of the things we know that when we're in flow, we tend to be more in trust. And when we're out of trust, flow kind of gets disrupted. So we're going to talk a bit about how those two go together. So some markers for our journey. These are just a couple of things to get us kicked off. So our theme is trust. The focus for this first quarter has been trusting ourselves. And you'll see the significance of the next line when we get to the breathing activity. But this is about how do we begin to trust ourselves such that we can increase our mastery for ourselves. And so one of the things that we have used as a way to discern where we are with trust in any moment in time is to pay attention to what's happening to our breath. And so the last two phases of the breathing model have to do with, can we let things come as opposed to fighting them or trying to change them or whatever? And can we find a sense of flow such that we can be with what's happening? When we don't trust, we end up spending energy guarding ourselves or second guessing ourselves or overextending ourselves. And so when we come from a sense of trust in ourselves, our breath flows more easily, we work with less effort, and things tend to go a bit better. So this is just, again, particularly for those of you who are come to us for the first time, we have four sort of sub-themes. They're all built around the breathing model. We've done this first round, decided to combine the third and fourth theme for today. And then we'll start the full four topic process in April, which leaves us December at the very end of the year to kind of reflect on the year as well as what we've discovered across the year. We encourage you to come to as many of these as you can, but again, if you miss one, it's fine. You'll be able to pick it right back up when you come and join us. So we don't want you to feel left out. You can also access some of the previous ones from this year if you're just starting us the first time. So let's jump right in here. So I'm going to let you read this for a minute, and then I'm going to explain to you what it's going to start for us. So I just and Karen and I meet every month to get ready for these, and this word enchantment came up from a reading that Karen had last time we met, and it seemed like a really fitting sort of orientation point for today. And just the paradox of some of the words that emerge, that the word means a thing that belongs to the world, and yet enchantment itself is a realization there are no things. It's all about relationships and our relationships to ourself, to loved ones, to our environment. And Thomas Berry has some wonderful writings about this idea of communion of subjects. And one of the reasons we sometimes fall out of trust is we treat things like like objects, excuse me, um, and commodify them, divide them, polarize them, make them be the other, etc. And one of the things that comes to us about trust, and you might have experienced this if you were out camping or engaged in sport or things where you were in closer proximity to nature and learned how to trust yourself. And so one of the things we're going to sort of focus on for today is that often the irony is that we often strive to find flow, not realizing the ultimate irony of that effort. And so there's a sense of surrendering that comes in this piece around trust, because ultimately trust requires a surrender to the moment, to another person, to part of ourself. And we want to, through this process, begin to think about what would surrender look like out beyond coaching. And so for me, what I would love to do is before I'm going to give you a question in a minute. I'd like you to put in the chat box anything that comes up for you based on what we've said briefly so far, or anything about enchantment. And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to put up another simple quote that we use every time, just as a reminder. So one of our propositions in our programs is that this moment or your life is your curriculum. Rather than trying to chase the curriculum somewhere else or be told what your curriculum should be, if this moment was your curriculum, what are you being asked to learn? And so for me to be able to come back to our own center, to support ourselves where we are, as we are, who we are, to see what wants to reveal itself. So given that, I'm just curious if anything comes up for any of you in terms of thinking or sensing into the word enchantment. And then we'll introduce our practice for today. So, Karen, I'm just curious if anything has shown up in our chat box.
It's just starting. The enchantment's starting
Excellent.
to seep in. Yes, I'll just read directly. Tony says, enchantment inspired me to think about entanglement theory in physics and even metaphysics. Yeah. Connection, walking in the woods. I think of magic, which is a form of surrender to believe in. And of course, awe.
Mhm. With
Fairy
an E,
tales. Hmm.
an A with an E at the end.
Yeah, with an E in the end. Absolutely. And sometimes I've heard that used as an acronym of what else and what else,
Yeah.
which I can bring as well. Fairy tales, childhood innocence, magic, miracles, energetic charge, sensing, perhaps even precognitive, allowing what already is, speaking our language, wonder, love the idea that I'm a subject and not the doer of, being sung, being breathed, being lived. Making anything happen, to be drawn into something without understanding why. Peaceful joy, illusion, belief, like a magician, I guess.
Yeah.
Dance. They're coming in. We're talking about song lines,
Mm.
where I place my attention in the moment, what I choose to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. No particular outcome or desire for destination. Yeah.
Mm.
Captivated in the moment.
Mm.
For me, I notice a stillness. There's time has stopped.
Mm.
And yet a flow of the songs, the space and between subjects, question mark.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one, Eddie. Yeah.
Right.
I think there's a breath being taken.
Great. So you're welcome to keep putting them in if you'd like, and I'd like to just get ourselves ready to do some practice and conversation. So for me, the value of enchantment and surrender is many, but the point I want to sort of introduce here is, children instinctively trust their environment until proven otherwise. And there's sometimes this notion as we age of, well, you've got to be more sort of prudent and cautious and wise and look out, and which is true. Going through life as a child would be difficult in a way. And at the same time, there's something about sort of akin to maybe catching up with an old friend that you have not seen for a long time. And you sit down and you just sort of exhale because, wow, you've come home. You're with somebody that you trust implicitly. And there's this piece of um, learning to kind of both read our environment, but learning how to surrender to the reality of the what is of our environment. And it goes back to something that I put in this week's blog post, which is sometimes that surrender to the moment means you recognize it's the situation you're in does not call for full trust. That sometimes to trust more blindly might not be to your advantage. So the surrender doesn't mean like giving in or giving up or being a victim or anything. It just means you're present in the moment to see what for what it actually is. And if you think back to times in your life where maybe you got burned a bit because you trusted too much or in ways that were not fitting, most of us would have had inklings before those moments that we did not listen to. In retrospect, we see all the things that we missed, the cues we missed, the clues we missed, that it might be more prudent for us to pay closer attention. And so the question around trusting ourselves is just being able to understand and be aware of ourselves such that we can discern what are we being asked to surrender to at this point. So the way we work this to kind of explore that a bit is we have a series of questions. So if you'd like, you can take a photo of this, or Karen will cut and paste this and put it in the chat box as well. And we'll do that both before and after you go into breakout rooms so you have access to it. But what we'll do is I'll sort of walk you through this so you know what we'd like you to do. And then we're going to guide you through the practice with this assignment in mind. Um, and and then we'll put you into some small groups to see what you discovered in the practice. Okay, so for now, all you have to do is sort of we'll follow along. I'll read through this and maybe explain a few things if we need to, answer any questions. And then we'll bring what you discovered in this assignment and reading this assignment into the breathing practice as a point of focus. Okay?
Yeah, I'm just in this training. Just you go ahead, okay?
Karen,
I'll
can
read
you mute
later.
everybody for right now? Thank you. So last month we talked about completion. If you were not here, that's just fine. But we talked about it as a liberation of energy that we can now use because we're no longer caught up in having to process something or protect ourselves. And so I want you to, as you come into our practice, think about a time when you were young, and you can define young, could be yesterday or could be a long time ago, when you felt enchanted, you like totally belonged, you were totally free, you felt so alive. So I'm just going to give you a minute to sort of help you be with that before I share the next two pieces, just to begin to bring something into your mind that you can take with you into the practice. So the ultimate aim of where we're going with this is based on this memory, where could you breathe out more fully in your own life now? What clues does it offer you in terms of where you could channel more of that energy you felt then when you were young in service of a deeper trust in yourself? And so the aim of that is to learn how to surrender more fully, to bring out more of the young person who had that experience. So for now, maybe just capture an image or a headline or something that's going to allow you to think of and remember this time when you were young and bring that into your mind's eye and sort of allow yourself to close your eyes and to get relaxed in your chair and just notice your body breathing itself. Notice itself sitting in your chair if that's what you're doing. No need to breathe in any special way for now. Just notice yourself being breathed. Hmm. And then on your next exhale, I'd like to invite you just to breathe out as fully as you can. As you bring into your mind's eye, or maybe into your whole body, this memory of you as a child. And perhaps there's a sensation of letting go, that you could just be free. As you feel that in your bones, and ask yourself, what did you leave behind once that memory passed? What is it you might want to reclaim from that experience or that time of your life? Perhaps you were uh, invited to grow up and leave that behind, or maybe that was only for children, or just sort of notice what you left behind that you might want back in some form now. Could be the capacity for magic. It could be utter freedom. It could mean relief from what other people thought of you. It could be some hidden talent that you now are not as confident to share. And as you keep breathing out and sort of being with that memory of yourself, is there something that comes up out of that whole experience that now feels very present to you and might actually be very useful for you at this point in your life? Could you allow yourself to just let it be? To just breathe with this an image, an energy, a color, a voice, a posture, whatever it is you chose that you would like to bring with you again. Just let it be. There's nothing to do with it yet. There's no story you need about it. Just let that be and notice if you feel that somewhere in your body. So for me, I went to an amazing art museum today. So the memory I would bring forward is being in a painting class as a small child and the sensation of holding a brush in my hand with nobody watching and just being allowed to paint. So notice what comes up for you as you imagine um, yourself. If there were no things, no judgments, no labels, you were just being sung into the world with what you were experiencing. And as you do that, you begin to sort of come up through our breathing process and begin to breathe in, which is the point where we're going to focus today. If you imagine maybe that young person or that young version of yourself were sitting across from you, what would it be encouraging you to pay attention to? What's it inviting to let come into your life in a way that you might find valuable or enjoyable right now. That might help you accomplish something that's important to you now, or let go of something right now. What is being asked to let come? And one of the ways to access that is just to really to notice your breathing in. If you had more oxygen, more energy, more freedom, what might come up for you? And with what came up for you will come more trust. So we move to our last of our 4 phases, moving around the full circle. If you were to imagine this now being channeled through you, this inner self that had so much joy. Imagine being in a sense of flow now. The freedom you felt now is the freedom you had before. And what does it make possible? So there's a sense of being breathed now even more, where the breath is coming through you, animated by the younger version of you thought about in your story. If he or she were part of you now, what would it bring? And so for our last step, I'd like you to imagine your younger self sitting across from you again. I'd like you to thank it for coming, to sharing this practice with you these last few minutes. See if it has any final words of wisdom or enchantment for you. And when you're ready, I'd like to invite you to open your eyes and come back into the room. If you want to take some notes for yourself, you can. Karen, are our rooms ready for folks?
I just need to know if you want by 2s or by 3s.
By 3s, please, and let's give them 40 minutes.
Okay.
You have plenty
Then
of
give
time
me a
to be in
moment.
dialogue about this. There's no rush, but please do make sure everybody has a chance to speak and make sure that everybody feels heard.
And just so you know, we had 2 people join in the middle of the guided visualization. So while I'm setting up, if you need to catch them up, just a moment, and I'll repost the questions for those as well.
Okay, great. You all set?
Almost.
Okay, wonderful.
Mm.
Mm, mm,
Okay. And I've had a special request. There's somebody who isn't able to speak today, but is going to witness. And don't worry, you're in a room, so you can make
Yeah,
that happen. And by 3s makes that happen anyway. So
okay,
off you go,
wonderful.
everybody. Thank you so
All
much.
right,
We'll see you
enjoy.
in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, so welcome back. We've had a kind of a wonderful flowing participation as people have come and gone, so this is great. We'd like to just take a few minutes and while I leave the slides down, just give anybody who would like to a chance to share anything that came up that feels important to them about their conversation in their group. Is there anyone who would like to share?
And we do have 2 screens. So if we're not seeing your hand, go ahead and raise your hand in the participation, but we'll try to catch your body language as
Yeah.
well.
Hmm.
Kate asked, what was the conference?
Wonder who she's asking, me or Mara?
I don't know.
Hmm.
Kate, who are you asking that question to? There's three people talking about conferences right now.
Oh yeah, Manjeet.
Manjeet. Oh,
Yeah. I wonder if Manjeet can
Yeah,
hear.
I'll just answer verbally. It was for social prescribing, and that literally was was a conference to take from. There's 70 pilots done across our province on community health centers being the nurses or the doctors being links to not just for the physical ailment, but to actually prescribe, emotional supports, I suppose. So that's why I was talking about things like they would say, we'd like you to go to the jam making session at the community center once a week, or walk with, come to this group and do this. So that it was very interesting, and they called it social prescribing. But it made me think of Mara, what Mara was saying about whole person care and really taking care of the spirit, the emotional, and the mental and the physical dimensions of a human being. And I was lucky enough, I had the privilege to facilitate and design their learning journey.
Wonderful. Is there anyone else who'd like to share?
This is Tony.
Hey, Tony.
Hello. We had such an interesting group, the three of us, Anita and Anna, and some things that sort of struck me was how this exploration and stories in general, of course, help make sense of who we are, who we were, and who we can become or re-become. and just the process of letting in and letting go of how things should be or were, that sort of overwrote all that. And just how this is part of our ongoing learning journey. That seemed to sort of come out from all three of us.
Okay, thank you.
Share.
Miriam, and then we'll.
Oh, sure.
We had the three of us, we started to look at, because we talked about enchantment and then the meaning of it in different languages, and the meaning of, I spoke more flow, because for me that's enchantment. And so I started to look at the distinction of language and how we wrap our words, and it means different things to different people. I mean, we can look it up in the dictionary and say that's what it says, and this is how I look at it. So we got into language of it and the meaning of things, and one causing the other to occur. So it was a fascinating conversation.
And looking back at it now, what did it mean for you, Miriam? What did you do?
Sorry about that.
No worries.
So like as a child, I think it was more enchantment. Like I would look at the ocean or where we went, and I would like it, wonderment, right? Wonderment, being enchanted by it. But where I am today, it's more, I look at it more in terms of a flow of happiness, a flow rather than block, because like for many years in my life, it's been about stop and go and feeling blocked or chained. And now it's more like flow. So if I go back to it, like when I walk in the forest, there's lots of enchantment, but it's always for me the flow. So that's where I tend to go towards.
Okay, great. I think there was somebody else trying to speak before.
That was Christopher, and then Mila has a question after, perhaps. Christopher
Okay.
goes. Mhm.
Yeah, I loved this beautiful reminder how energy transcends space and time, that I could connect to a beautiful moment of enchantment many, many years ago and bring it back to life and actually feel how that energy, this sense of beauty and wonder and freedom, this can actually be revisited and reinvigorating, re-energizing the present moment. And that was just a beautiful, beautiful experience just to have that. And I felt quite lucky because our group was very small, so we had plenty of time to really go a little bit more deeper into our respective stories and to really land with them and see what that means for us, how the past is informing those past moments is informing and what we can do to actually help us bring a little bit of those moments to the present moment.
Yeah.
Of the present moment. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Mila, your question is getting answered in the chat. Would the question that Mila had was, I'm just curious, did anyone have a vision or memory come up that was with other people? Ours were all when we were alone or on our own. And people are responding to not only other people, but animals and dogs, and with dance performance and choreography. And does anybody else want to contribute more to that? Jana says performing with a full choir. That's a lot. Sounds like the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's coming up for me, Karen, and you sharing that was going back to where we sort of started before the practice around that sometimes we make choices to not do something because of our awareness or discernment about what's there in the moment for us. But I was thinking when I was in college, I was on a softball team, and we were in the final game, and I was deathly ill with the flu, could barely stand up. But I got drafted to kind of step into the game. And those of you who are not privy to baseball, for some of you, it would be like asking me questions about cricket. So this may not the analogy may not be meaningful to you, but for those who understand baseball, we were down by I think 3 runs. We had 3 players on bases, and I ended up hitting a home run. And I could barely run because I could barely stand up, but somehow I made it all the way around the bases and got what's called a grand slam. But I remember that because I remember to this day, and that was more years ago than I choose to remember. I remember the feeling of the ball hitting the bat more than anything. And I said, how did that even happen? And by some miracle, it went a long, long ways away. I say that because even when we decide not to pursue something, or that our trust is not present, say in a person or a transaction, we can make the right choice when we have that experience of the ball hitting the bat, right? Our full presence in what's actually happening in front of us. Sort of like you're sharing, Christopher, to a point, it brings this freedom to just be so present that we're really acutely aware of what's actually happening. And sometimes that's surrender means we lean into it, and sometimes it means we are surrendered by leaning away. But we're really present. And even thinking back to your story, Karen, to what we discern is actually happening right now. And it's one of the things that I think a gift that children have, even when in difficult moments, that children largely only live in the present. And I think there's a gift in that then can be matured through wisdom and time. But it's this sense of presence to the moment of what is it trying to reveal to us. Even though I was more in a flow state than in a conscious hitting state, it seemed to prove successful anyways. So Michelle, I see your hand up.
Hi, David. Yes, thank you. You
Yeah.
you totally inspired me by what you were saying, and I was just reminded about some good coaching that I got a couple of years ago about how tokens can be really helpful for us. So I was going to ask you, do you have a bat and a ball in your office that reminds you of that time that you connected and hit that grand slam?
Yeah, I don't, but I have other tokens that play that
Yeah.
same role for me for the same reason, to be able to return. And I have actually I have a bookshelf in one of my offices, in my other office that has lots of those, and I sometimes will bring one or more out around particular purposes, like if I'm trying to decide whether to do a partnership with somebody around business or make a decision. Because it's being able to reactivate the part of ourself that's done that well in the past. And then sometimes I'll have reminders of, oh, this is what happens when you don't pay attention, you go to sleep and you make a choice that you later then regret. So yes, I totally agree. The symbolic objects are absolutely wonderful that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a basketball in my office. Just reminds me to keep shooting. That was my sport. Anyway, thanks.
You're most welcome. Yeah. So are you a big Caitlin Clark fan now?
You know, I live in Canada, but oh my
Oh,
God, I've been watching her so much.
yeah.
She's like 50% of my feed. Yeah, I'm a big Caitlin Clark fan, but honestly, I
Excellent.
don't think I could afford to go watch any of those games. They're so
No,
expensive. Yeah.
or yeah. Is there anybody else that feels they want to share something to check in about their conversation or anything else that's arising for you? Hmm.
I could ask one, David.
Yes, Sherman. Yeah.
This is always such a useful exercise that you do, and then we are in a room sharing with each other. And I'm asking, what's the point of growing up then if we don't learn everything from when we were a child?
Because we can reach things on the shelf now that we couldn't as a child. Yeah. I think in some ways there's an arc to life. In the sort of the middle of life, you're striving and then as you get older, I think some of those other earlier elements come back again. But also I don't want to idolize childhood because it wasn't always for many of us there were parts of it that were not good for us. And a lot of our work later in life is kind of undoing all that stuff. But um, I'm just really convinced that most of our maturing is not acquiring new things, it's releasing old things to allow ourselves to actually grow. Um, and yeah. But so again, there may be other points in our life or other ways of getting at this sense of freedom and being able to kind of release ourselves in and take a fuller inhale and go do what we need to be doing. And yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
I'm witnessing a lot of resonance, let's just say, in a lot of different ways in these screens.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm. And those of you who've been in the narrative coaching space know you've heard me say many, many times why I don't invest a lot of energy in goals. Because for one of the legions of reasons, because we don't really discover what's necessary to achieve something until we're in motion, and we end up changing in order to have that come true. So if I'd gone to the bat on my turn, concentrating on being sick, worried, oh, I'm gonna let everybody down, we're gonna lose, they're not gonna like me anymore, and all the stories we tell ourselves in those moments of drama, I probably would have not done well at all. But I was so unconscious. I said, I've played baseball all my life. I know how to do this. And I just completely surrendered to being fundamentally sick and just trusted that I remembered how to do this and got completely out of my head. And things turned out well for me. But part of what we're after with this whole notion of the Beyond Coaching experience is that I feel like sometimes we try to engineer coaching, for example, and do coaching with somebody else or to somebody else, as opposed to trusting that as human beings on their way towards something, and our role is really to help them take the next step and trust themselves and notice what happens when they took that step. And do you want to take another one? And what might that step be? And then as they're moving towards what they have decided they want, they're becoming the person who will be capable of accomplishing what they set out to do. But that person was not available to them fully at the beginning, otherwise they would have already completed what they set out to do. All right, so we have just a few more minutes. I was just looking here on the slides to see if there's anything else that feels important. You have to find it again. It's disappeared. We don't want that. Let me try this again. Meanwhile, let me just try this. Oh, it went away. That's why. That's why it went away. Here it is. Yeah, I'm just gonna put this up. Okay, now we've, don't mind me while I'm talking to myself. It's been a really long day. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, so this part of the breathing cycle is about letting to come. So it's like when something is emerging, can't we let it come through? And then find that sense of flow that Miriam was talking about. Again, one of our ways that we think about that and track that is what happens to our breath. We often think that our breath is just one thing, but if you were to record your breath across a day, you would discover you have many, many, many ways of breathing and many, many ways of breath. So we can use our breath as sort of an indicator about how we're doing in terms of flow or not flow. And part of the, whether it comes from your younger self or someplace else, but the gifting of moments when we can just channel. So like I channeled with a baseball bat, you can channel with whatever is true for you, and to begin to allow more of our breath, more of ourself to come out in whatever it is we're trying to do. If at any point you want to drop any comments about these sessions, you can just, here's a link to that. These will be also posted for you as part of your thank you for coming today. But again, we're building out some new features for the BCE in the coming months. And so for now, I just want to invite you to take whatever you got from today, from wherever it came, and figure out what it might bring to your life if you were to actually bring that into the present. So we're getting set to wrap up. Any final comments or questions from anybody before we leave for today?
Thank you for the gift.
Oh, you're most welcome.
We wish you well on your travels home, David.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm flying home tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. Well, be well, my friends. We will have another one of these next month. We'll start a new cycle with a new sort of sub-theme around trust. And you're always welcome to come join us. And until then, have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And thank you for joining us. Thank you, Karen, as always. And we'll see you again soon.